Welcome to the Four Fires Podcast, where we talk about winning in all four of the essential areas of life.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Four Fires Podcast. In this episode, you're going to get to hear from Alan and our good friend Steve Hill. Steve's going to be actually interviewing Alan, asking about what Lead Advisors is, and I hope you get a lot of benefit out of understanding what a human capital consulting company is and a little bit about Lead's culture and what our mission is in the work that we do. I hope you enjoy.
So, Alan, I've been down here in LaGrange, spending some time with you and with your team, and what I'm trying to bottle up and take back to Charlotte to be able to explain, I was hoping you could help with your words so I don't miss anything, is why Lead? What does Lead do? What's a big benefit that Lead brings to the world?
So Lead is a human capital consulting company. And what that basically means is every company has products, every company has processes, and every company has people. And where we step in with companies is we help them with their people. We work with companies that are large construction companies. We work with online retailers. Transportation companies. It really doesn't matter what they do. It matters that they have people in them and that they want their people to get better. One of our core beliefs at Lead is that the greatest competitive advantage of almost any company out there is not necessarily their products or their processes, but it is in their people. And so if that's the way that you differentiate yourself in the marketplace, shouldn't we be investing in that? Shouldn't we be growing people on our team so that we have the best team possible?
One of the things that was most impressive to me, you gave an example, and I have a friend that owns a larger company, and it sucks up a lot of his time, sucks up all of his vacations for the last several years. You had mentioned a friend of yours, Justin, who is just a serial entrepreneur, and if you wouldn't mind, could you give the cliff notes of what you've helped him, where he was when you met him, to what you helped him accomplish, and what he's doing now?
Yeah, so a lot of some organizations we work with are large corporate organizations, but a lot of the companies that we find ourselves working in are these founder entrepreneurs. They're these very driven people who have built and created something. And one of the things that we've noticed as we've worked with those kinds of people is that they are the Navy SEALs of the business space. I mean, they are high capacity, they're high commitment, they just don't know how to quit. And it is both their gift and their curse. So part of what we do is, oftentimes we'll walk in and help a business owner understand first what is the distinction between a job and a business. So we frame it this way: if you stop working a job, it stops paying you.
Right.
If you stop working a business, it continues to pay you. And that the reason that you didn't go work in the corporate world was because you didn't want a job with rules and restrictions and all of the cage that comes along with living in a corporate job. And many of these entrepreneurs that we find have built their own cage. They are now a slave to this thing that they have created. And so part of what we do is we help free these entrepreneurs from, we wrote a book called You Don't Have to Manage What You've Made, but you do have to make sure that what you've made gets managed.
Right.
And so for people like Justin, who might be putting 60 hours of their life into this business and missing, key events for their kids and missing vacations because they feel like that they have to maintain this thing that they've built. We can come alongside those people, help them redefine their role, start thinking more like an owner rather than an operator. We can help install managers underneath them who will act as executives. We can even coach and lead those executives to make sure that they're effective. And what that does is it frees up these creators, these builders, to not get stuck managing this one thing that they've built, but rather to like let someone else manage it, and that they go out and they launch something else, and they go out and they create again and again. And that is truly allowing them to live into their gift, which is in the creation, not in the management. So this example, one of these people that we've helped, when we first engaged with him several years ago, he was running a $16 million business, and it was taking all of his time and energy, and he was doing really well personally out of that business. But as we've helped him move from operator to owner, he has since then gone and launched 4 other businesses, and now the total value of annual revenue of those businesses is probably in $140 million.
Wow.
So because his gift was in creation, not in management. And so that's a part of what we can do as we, partner with these owner and entrepreneurs. And sometimes that's the solution that they need. And sometimes they want to stay in the game and they want to continue to operate, and we can just help them do it a little more healthily.
Sure. It's fascinating because I think if you talk to many entrepreneurs, they would map out and say, I want to do exactly what you just said. But what you also mentioned in there is that their giftings of launching and growing a business to a certain size doesn't always translate, and it's a big jump once you get to a certain size to then go from building it to then operating it. And so it sounds very simple what you just went through, but how does LEAD help someone like this person walk through that actual transition? And how much of, or what type of a role do you play with helping? Because I'm sure he's not growing and managing all of those businesses now. You said he runs 4 now and is almost 10x the size of it, which is phenomenal. How does LEAD play a role in helping a person like that accomplish what you've helped him accomplish?
So some of it is helping people articulate what they want. And then, the value of a coach in almost any scenario in life is accountability, but the way we like to frame that is really what we call staying directionally correct. So if you tell me that you want to go to California, and you're going to go from the East Coast out to the West Coast, and you're headed to California, and then I watch you make a right turn, and all of a sudden you start heading towards New York. Your coach goes, whoa, hang on.
Right.
You said you wanted this, but then I just watched you do this.
Right.
And anytime somebody's going to make a significant shift in the kind of work that they do, or particularly even in their identity. So some of this move from owner to, or operator to owner, requires you have to start seeing yourself differently. And there's some work, and we're inevitably going to fall back into our old habits. And so the value of a coach, number one, is to help you articulate where you want to go, hold you accountable to going where you said you wanted to go, and anytime you get off course, redirect. But then even to help you name dates in the future that is going to be a specific win. So we're going to name, for Justin in that particular circumstance, we just named a date that he was going to first do a stress test where we said he was going to be gone for a couple of weeks and test and see how it was going to go. And we would be there. We would be present within the organization to kind of feel how things were going in his absence, make any tweaks, make any adjustments. He may come back for a little while, and then name a date when he was going to be gone. In his particular scenario, we named the stress test date of when he was going to be gone for 3 weeks. It was actually during paternity leave, like it was the birth of his second daughter. He just never came back.
Wow.
Everything went smoothly during the stress test. and we were there watching it, and he just never came back. And he has not been back inside the door of that company in 4 years. In fact, he intentionally has the executives of that company come have meetings with him outside of the company because he doesn't want to go in because he knows that he'll mess with stuff.
Sure.
So it's fun to watch the freedom. I talked to another guy, and he said he said we've been working this plan, and because of this plan, he's like, during the summers, I disengage. He's like, I'm playing with my kids at the pool all summer long because I've got my kids.
Right.
And he said, but I love work. And so during the school year when they're in school, I'm all in. But he goes, I have the freedom to choose when I want to press on the gas pedal and when I want to let off. And he goes, and when I let off, it's not like I stop getting paid for that. So there's one of the things that I think entrepreneurs really value is freedom.
Right.
Absolutely. It's why we stepped into this space of like do our own thing.
Right.
Freedom. So what's freedom? Freedom is just choices. Freedom's not a binary. It's not a yes, I'm free, or no, I'm not free. You live somewhere on this continuum of freedom. The more choices that you have, the more free you are. And the choice that most entrepreneurs have is, I have the choice to get up and go to work to keep the business running, or I have the choice to not go into work and the business falls apart in 2 months. Well, that's one choice. But what if you also had the choice, like whether you're in a sell phase or whether you're in a build phase, what if you had the choice to go in, to not go in, to pour your gifts and energy into the company to try to grow it, or let your executive team maintain it? Like, there's more choices on that side of the fence. And so we actually, one of the things, we call it the freedom model, is we coach people into this idea of having more choices in how they run their business. And a big part of that has to do with building exceptional executives underneath them. And just because you're good at building a business doesn't necessarily mean that you're really good at building the people who you need to run your business. And that's where we come in. Like, we are experts at people development. And so we can help you build those experts or those executives underneath you that you need to gain the freedom that you originally intended to have while you were starting your business.
And I think, to your point, a lot of men and women that are starting businesses as entrepreneurs, they are really good at certain things, which can sometimes bleed over into the assumption they're good at all things.
Right.
So lead yourself and your team. You work with companies that have people. A lot of the companies you work with, not all of them, but a lot of them are multiple millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. What would you say to the mass number of people in the country today that are starting their own business? They're early in their journey. They've already started it, but they're early in their journey. They're sub $5 million, in some cases even sub $1 million, where every penny is maybe tough to come by in the early going, but they want to grow a larger business. They want to accomplish some of the things you're talking about. How would you talk to or explain to that person the value of a coach early to build towards what they want, maybe compared to or versus, I'm going to wait until I have money or wait until I'm at $10 million and then start applying some of the things you're talking about? So what would the value to lead be to a new or a smaller business that wants to grow and be a bigger business?
Man, those early days are a slog. Like, it really, I mean, less than 4% of businesses that are ever started ever break the $1 million mark, right? So, so for anybody who has gotten a business to that point, kudos, right? You're in the top 4% of something. It is it is never too late to build culture, to build leaders. And but what I will say is it's harder the bigger you are. I think there's a fallacy that people say, oh, well, I'll do that when I have money. It will be easier. No, it will be harder, and it will cost more money. Because you're turning a ship that's much bigger. It has inertia that's already moving in a direction. So if you don't do the people development work early on, number one, every hiring decision, when you have 2 employees and you're going to go to hire that 3rd employee, well, the importance of that hire is way more important than the hire of the 100th employee, because that 100th employee makes up 1/100th of your culture. But that 3rd employee makes up 33% of your company culture. So, one, getting the right people on the bus early on and having some guidance and some leadership in and around how to do that. Maybe the difference between whether your business makes it or doesn't. And, spending money on people is hard. Like, people development is slow. It's messy. It's hard. And it's worth it. Like, it's one of those things that when you start growing and developing a person, an executive, a leader on your team, you're not going to see, it's not like going to the gym. It's not because you went to the gym one time that you have this miraculous ta-da moment, like, aha, like, oh, I'm now like this fitness god. It's a process. And so start early, be consistent, do the work, and the results will come. It's never going to, spending money on people, there's a cost to doing it for sure. And there's a cost to not doing it.
I think it's very interesting what you said is when you think of percentages, which a lot of business owners do, and they assume when I have money and down the road, but your stat around your 3rd hire and your 5th hire, that's 30% or 20% of your company. And so a bad hire there could be extremely detrimental to the point of you may never see those bigger numbers like you want to. And how many times are you going to start over before you run out of energy doing that versus if it's your 100th employee? So I think that's super interesting.
So we've seen it done both ways. We've had clients that are doing $250 million a year in revenue, and they've come to us and said, hey, we really need to invest in culture and in people. And we can step in that space, and it's hard. You already have a lot of cultural norms. You got 600 employees. There's a lot of shift that needs to happen, and so it does require a heavy lift. We've seen other companies, and this was a fascinating. We worked with a company in outside of Dallas, and before they ever started, with the owner, he said, I want to be a culture-driven company. And we stepped in with him and helped him articulate his values, create a hiring metric that was structured around those values, create a very intentional company culture, build some key executives. He was very, very clear on what he wanted to build, but he's doing $40 million a year in his 4th year. And
in his
he's
fourth year
from $0 in revenue. And, can you point a finger and say for sure that's because he grew faster because his culture was better and his leaders were better? That's not how this game works, right?
Sure.
There's intuition, we get it, that better leaders allow us to attract better talent, retain better talent. We kind of know that because we have experiences having been led by poor leaders, and we didn't stay there.
That's right.
So, But yeah, I mean, we've seen it done both ways, both from, hey, we've already established ourselves as a company. It's now time to build culture. That's fine. I think you get more juice for your squeeze if you start early.
Yeah. Being down here for the last couple of days in the Grange, it's been very encouraging, and I feel good walking around with you guys, walking around town. There's a lot of people that recognize you. There's your gym. Today we were at the Chamber. We were talking to other local businesses, and there was a lot of people remembering you opened up for this event and you spoke over here, and you guys have developed. You've really played a big role from an outside perspective. You've really played a big role in providing a service to a town that now, after a few years, really, and I'm sure along the way as well, but it's obvious to me they appreciate Lead being in that town. And what you've done for this community, what you've done for the businesses, what you do for the businesses that are trying to build this community. What would you point to, or what would you, when you think about LaGrange, what are you thankful that you've been able to accomplish by adding to this town?
Yeah, thanks. We are trying to make a dent in building an economy and a community. Generally, what we see in businesses and even in overall communities is that there are three bottlenecks to growth. Right. So the first bottleneck to growth is, do we have opportunity? And so from a business's perspective, that question is, can we find anybody who wants what we have to offer? So you evaluate that, and if you can find opportunity to sell your wares or your services, great. The next question is, do you have capital? Is your bottleneck capital? Can you get a hold of the money that you need to be able to deliver on all the opportunities that exist? And then the last question, the last bottleneck, is talent. Do we have the people of the right quality and skill set and drive to be able to fulfill the needs of our clients? So those three bottlenecks: opportunity, capital, and talent. More often than not, when we ask business owners, what's the limiting factor to your growth, their answer is, it's talent. We can't find the right people. We can't train the right people. We can't get, and we want to be a solution for that, both at the business level, but then ultimately even at the community level. We want our county, we want our community to be known as a place in the country where we have quality talent, that we have good humans who are willing to do good work. And that's a high, lofty dream that requires an awful lot of work, but that's the game. That's the place we play in.
It's not a big goal. It's not worth pursuing. Doesn't raise the blood pressure. Right. So, with that being said about LaGrange, I think it's a great answer. Lead has a vision that to expand, to add exactly what you talked about doing in LaGrange, being able to do that in more cities, more towns, more suburbs, all over the country. Recently, Lead has identified or decided their first expansion of many will be in the Charlotte metro area. Yep. Charlotte's a unique, being where I live now and have for several years, Charlotte's unique in that you have people that have lived in Charlotte, literally second, third, fourth generation. The town I live in west of Charlotte, I've met multiple people that are fourth generation, whether they run the local bank, the farmers, there's a furniture company's been on the downtown in the square for 47 years. So you have second, third, fourth generation. You have the banking has come in, so a lot of financial institutions come into Charlotte. So you have a lot of both suppliers and kind of second, third tier, but you also have the banking, so big, large national companies that have come in. They put a lot of money and infrastructure into Charlotte. Yep. You also have a tremendous number of people that are moving to Charlotte. So in the 2020, 2021 timeframe, there was roughly 170 people a day moving to Charlotte and the suburbs. Wow. They've changed infrastructures of cities, have in some cases, become overwhelmed because there's so many people moving. They've changed a lot of the zoning to allow more people to move to this area. A lot of those people are coming with dreams or visions of being able to build a company, or they have started a company. So you have 50, 60, 70-year-old companies. You have also people that aren't necessarily from the area that are building business. So they've either moved their company there, in some cases they're small, but they're growing, or you have people that are starting companies there. So two-part question. That being the background of Charlotte, number one, why Charlotte? Of all of the areas that you have on your vision board to expand LEAD, why Charlotte, number one? Mm-hmm. And knowing what's in Charlotte, why is that a perfect spot for LEAD to come?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the real answer to the question of why Charlotte, LEAD is filled with a group of people. We are natural people developers. Like we. The expertise that we require to be a part of LEAD is, a good culture fit for us, and a good background and a passion and a heart for doing the kind of work that we're doing. And so really the reason to move to Charlotte is because you're in Charlotte. It's because it's like we will only work with companies that have people in them. Mm-hmm. Do you have any companies in Charlotte with people in them?
Lots
right,
of them,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so where we go is mostly a product of who we align with, and who's going to own and champion the business in that environment. Mm-hmm. So we've been really, really excited about you as a culture fit for us. We believe a lot in both your character and in your professional competencies.
I appreciate that.
And I think that there's a market for these kinds of services in almost any place that businesses want to grow and to thrive. Like it is oftentimes the nut that business owners can't quite get, is that people development part. Mm-hmm. And so that's the work we do, and there's opportunity there. So yeah. we're gonna partner with you to move what we do into that space.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited about it.
Yeah,
we moved down from Illinois with the idea of being able to build roots, add value into a community like we haven't previously. So my wife and our 4 girls are excited to strive for the impact that you've had in LaGrange and surrounding, and you mentioned Texas and lots of other areas as well. And we have that same vision all over Charlotte and our local community of being able to work with those folks. I know a lot of great people. I've been able to meet some of your advisors down here. You have an incredible advisor team, and I appreciate part of the reason of coming to Charlotte is there's a good culture fit and character and the other things you said. I very much appreciate. Your advisors exude that. Mm-hmm. When I walk around LEAD, I don't hear a bunch of people talking about what LEAD does. I hear a bunch of people talking about who they are, which is why they have aligned with LEAD. Mm-hmm. Some incredibly talented people, PhDs, college professors, pastors, superintendents, incredibly talented people that have been attracted to LEAD. Testament to the incredible culture that LEAD has, because it's genuine. It's who they are. What would you say into Charlotte as an extension, or maybe you could just speak a little bit to the advisor role and who that serves and in what ways that it does, or how that culture fit is good for LEAD?
Yeah. So, it's been really interesting as we've gone down the path of what is it that makes a great advisor for LEAD. And it really is not educational pedigree. Although we have some people who have some really impressive educational pedigrees. It's maybe not business experience is not the telltale sign of whether you're going to be a phenomenal advisor or not. The greatest predictor that we have found about whether somebody is going to be an exceptional advisor in LEAD's ecosystem is whether they have a demonstrated past of people development. It takes a special person to be able to sit down with someone and make the session all about them, to extract from them what they need to say, because you are operating in their best interest, because you want them to win, and your win is seeing them win. And so there's just a wiring for these people who are these gifted people developers. And oftentimes we find those people in the ministry space, and in the counseling space, and in the education space. And what we're able to do is we're able to give them a skill set that's layered on top of their natural wiring, that oftentimes allows them to earn a pretty decent hourly income for using their gifts in a different context. So we're very intentional about the advisors that we bring on board, but it's surprising that it's not necessarily the resume that you might expect that makes a great advisor. It's much more, can you show me a demonstrable example of people development throughout your history, and if that's true, then we can teach you all the rest. But it's really hard to teach you how to deeply care about the person on the other side of the table at the level that we need for you to care about them. We can do it, but it's long. That's a longer burn than that's not who we're looking for as an advisor. Right. So
you're finding the folks that is who they are at their core, and their giftedness or their talents, and then you're guiding them in a way that they can use their gifts and talents that adds value to people, companies, the world, in addition to where they're already using those gifts and talents.
Yeah. What's really interesting is, so when we coach, so one of our frameworks, just at a very high level, we coach in what we call the 4 fires framework. And so those 4 fires that we coach in is we coach in the professional fire, the people fire, the physical fire, and the purpose fire. And part of this journey for our advisors, your professional fire is made up of your craft, so what you're good at, and your ability to convert your craft into cash. And we are all, as advisors, on this 4-dimensional journey to help grow and develop these other people 4-dimensionally, but we're also on the same journey. And so for many of our advisors, learning the craft of being an executive coach is part of their professional fire development. It's the part that allows them to convert their craft into cash more effectively. And it's a neat byproduct of some of the work that it's kind of a symbiotic ecosystem. We're growing, they're growing. It's a win-win-win.
All of your advisors are living what they're teaching.
And many times the gifts that they have to be able to offer to their clients come out of the other 3 fires. Come out of the purpose fire and the people fire and their physical fire. So.
I had somebody ask me the other day, Alan, and I repeated this from, I think I heard you say it or someone say it. I said, what do you do? Or what does LEAD do? And I said, LEAD builds, we know, we build 4-dimensional leaders and businesses. And it was a quick conversation, and that was the start of it. But I've heard you talk a lot about 4-dimensional leaders. If you could, and I know there's some resources that dive in and do justice to this question, but if you gave a soundbite to explain what is a 4-dimensional leader, what would that look like?
Yeah, so real quickly, the 4 dimensions that we're looking at building are your professional area, so your craft and your cash. your people area, friends and family, your physical area, how you eat and how you exercise, and your purpose area, which is your connectedness and living into the commitments of your life. So what we mean when we say a 4-dimensional leader, it's pretty easy to find a 1-dimensional man or a 1-dimensional woman. This is somebody who's killing it in their profession, but the rest of their life is kind of like a train wreck. When you have a 4-dimensional leader, you have somebody who is so good at their craft, and they are recognized for being good at what they do, and because they're good at converting that craft into cash, they're well resourced. They don't operate out of need. They operate out of want, and they're very good at what they do, and people know it. And that they're in their people fire, their home is a source of strength and not of stress. That they have real, meaningful friendships with people that they can do life with. That they have in their physical fire, that there's a presence about them, that they carry themselves with a confidence because they know that they've done the work to be in good shape, and that's regardless of where they are in their age journey. I know some 70-year-olds who walk in a room and there's something about them because they carry themselves because they've done the work. And then in your purpose fire, that person is so clear on their connection with their Creator, and that they're living into the daily commitments of and expectations of their Creator, that their life is this kind of is a life of integrity. It just looks like they are who they say they are. When you meet somebody who is winning in all 4 of those areas, you notice. And the ability that person has to be able to lend strength out of each one of those areas changes their families, changes the business and the community that they're a part of. It changes the churches that they're a part of. It changes the whole community that they live in. They become a pillar of the community because they are a person who has the ability to lend strength to others in each of those areas.
Alan, I appreciate your time. Just a couple more quick questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When it comes to the application and execution, what services does LEAD provide? Because you've talked a lot about the executive coaching, which is incredibly valuable, and some of the stories you've told are very appreciative. So executive coaching, what other services do you provide? And then what does it actually look like from, again, an execution standpoint to engage with LEAD? So if you wouldn't mind walking through, what does that look like?
Sure. So the 2 primary services that LEAD offers is executive coaching and management training. And executive coaching tactically looks like 2 hours a month, face-to-face. We can do digital, but oftentimes we're sitting across the table from you, taking notes and listening to what's going on in each of your 4 fires and helping craft strategies and plans for you to win in all of those areas. Then throughout the month, you have unlimited sounding board calls. What that means is that if an issue comes up or you've got a question about what you should do on topic A, B, or C, you just pick up the phone and call. And your coach is going to get back to you and help you think through and process that particular issue. So that's what an engagement looks like from the executive coaching side. It's not overly intensive in terms of a time commitment, but it's intentional and specific and directed enough to where we're able to check in regularly and keep you on a consistent path of where you want to go. Management training follows a similar pattern. We're going to come in, we're going to meet with your team for 2 hours. We're going to deliver content that is both relevant in the business environment and that is applicable for each of them personally. So we say what's good for business is good for life. And so we want your people to walk out of one of those management training sessions answering these 2 questions. One, was the content that I just learned really relevant and applicable for me in the business environment professionally? And number 2, am I a better human because I just spent time doing this management training? So that's the objective of all of our management training sessions. And again, it's not overly, resource heavy. It doesn't require your whole team for an entire day. It's 2 hours. We do put your team together in a room, or we have online options where you can send an individual to learn and upskill their human skills in this space. So management training, whether it's on-site or online, is a 2 hour a month commitment.
Great explanation of the services, and I like the analogy and how it adds a lot of value. If I ask you one more question before you got to go, the good owners that understand the value. Excuse me, Alan. If I ask you one more question before you go, so a lot of the good HR directors and the owners and the executives that would be engaging with lead, a lot of them are wanting to see more than. They're not just checking a box. They're not just calling you in to let people drop off a ladder or do a high ropes course and provide an entertainment value. They want to actually make their people better because that has a more lasting effect.
Yeah.
Could you speak to, and you just mentioned a couple questions you want people to answer, which are fantastic questions. Could you speak to some of the experiences that you've had or maybe even some of the feedback that you've gotten from employees that stick with you? Because I know you've got hundreds, but what are some that stick with you that would speak to somebody who wants to grow their people intentionally, both for the benefit of the company, but even probably more so for the benefit of that person, for the genuine desire to add value to the people that are part of a company?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the core of who we are is we're people developers. So the work that we're doing is just an extension of who we want to be. And so we love the opportunity to get to help grow people. So we have lots of stories where during the process of this either executive coaching or management training, we get to hear some of the outcomes. So I'll give you for instance, in management training, we do a course on conflict resolution, and it's a very useful skill in the professional environment. And what we teach is there's a science for how to navigate difficult conversations, and we define difficult conversations as when emotions are high and opinions differ, but the outcome you can't just ignore it because the outcome actually really, really matters. And so we spend a lot of time talking about, hey, in your company, in your organization, when are some times when executives on your team have had differences of opinions, or somebody made somebody mad, and emotions are high, and now you have to be the one who facilitates the reconciliation there, or how we get people to align. And that, like I said, those are really wonderful business skills. And we always pause at the end and say, okay, and what's good for business is good for life. So the things that make you a good manager also make you a good mother, or a good husband, or a good wife. And so we had a client come up after class, and we had engaged in this conversation about, hey, here's how we have these. Here's how the science of how to navigate conflict. And we had asked, think about some particular instances in your own life where you might be able to use these tools. And this woman came up, and just tears in her eyes, thinking about she was about to have a conversation with her dad about taking his keys away from him. Like, he was at the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. Both his opinion and the opinion of the participant's mother were that he was fine to drive, but there had been multiple occasions where he had, all the indications were there that this maybe was not a safe thing for him to be doing, both for him and for other people. And emotions were high, and opinions differ, and the outcome of that conversation could potentially save someone's life.
Right.
It needed to happen. And she said, "I'm so thankful. I feel like I can go and have this conversation.
Wow.
And it will still be hard, and it will still be messy, but I feel equipped to go have that conversation and align all of us around what we all want, which is we want Dad to be safe, and we don't want Dad to ever do harm to someone else. And how do we make sure that that's always true?" And so, anytime you get to help somebody with a real problem, the value in this is that it's not theoretical.
Right.
It's
real life.
It's real life. And so that's, whether it's, and the win for the business owner is, wow, I just invested in something that not only helped my person function better at the office, but helped them get a skill set that helped them really be a better daughter.
Right.
And that creates this gratitude and gratefulness of just like, wow, my company would invest in me at this level. So, we like doing that work. We like it when owners understand, like, this is an investment. And yeah, there'll be some professional benefit for you, but
right,
your employee is also going to get a win out of this.
Yeah, that's huge. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, that's great.